and welcome to the Around the Table podcast
with Pastors Matt Smith and Nick Decker.
This podcast is all about the ministry and preaching of Lebanon Baptist Church in Greensboro, North Carolina. The goal is to help you grow in your faith and spiritual walk with the Lord every single day of your life.
To learn more about Lebanon Baptist Church,
visit lbcnow.org.
And now your hosts, Matt Smith and Nick Decker.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Around the Table podcast. I am Matt Smith, lead pastor of Lebanon Baptist Church and one of the hosts of this podcast, and joined with our co-host, Nick Decker, our family ministries and outreach pastor here at Lebanon Baptist Church, and we are excited to be bringing a good episode to you today.
Real good episode.
Very good.
Episode number 18.
18. Milestones.
Milestone right there.
18.
What are we talking about today?
I thought we would just kind of make it up as we went along.
It's usually how it is anyway. We just make it up.
Freestyle, making it up.
Making it up.
Yeah, no.
What do we got coming up, though, that could help in this discussion? We have our Revitalize Conference coming up.
Oh, yeah, two things.
Two things
coming
actually,
up. One thing for our church.
Yes.
And then one thing for other pastors
Correct.
and deacons or elders or church leaders.
Yep, about 80, speaking of the Revitalize Conference, you can come back to the night of worship, but about 85, 90 people registered so far, close to 90 pastors and leaders registered for that. So that's a pretty good number. We're excited about that. That's on April 20th with Mark Clifton.
Yep, Tuesday, April 20th, Revitalize Conference with Mark Clifton from the North American Mission Board. Also, special worship from Chosen Road that morning. We're excited about that. But that's going to be an all-day event for pastors, deacons, elders, church leaders, and like you said, about 90 already signed up and registered to come. We're excited about that day and just being able to be a part of helping to facilitate. That's all we're doing. We're just facilitating, doing some of the legwork to facilitate getting help to other pastors and churches so that we can work together, because we're all trying to reach people with the gospel of Jesus Christ through the local church, which I believe is the only hope. I believe is the only hope of the world is the church.
Yeah.
Some people say Jesus, to which I say, but Jesus has limited the proclamation of the gospel and his effort to
the church.
Correct. So the church is actually the hope of the world. So we're excited about that on Tuesday, April 20th, but then on April 19th, Monday night, it's hard to know which one I'm more excited about, but I'm equally excited, if not maybe a little bit more, because that's for our church people, maybe a little bit more excited about Monday night, 6:30, April 19th, night of worship. We're going to have a lot of worship from Chosen Road. This is an incredible group that does a great job of helping lead worship, and even, through some Southern gospel, bluegrass, and kind of a modern style, though. I keep saying they're making bluegrass great again.
Yeah, they really are making bluegrass. Southern gospel, too. I mean, Southern gospel's always been great.
Well,
it's always been great. I love it. So
it's had its ups and downs.
But they do a great job of mixing in bluegrass, Southern gospel, as well as even some contemporary worship songs as well.
I know,
some great songs. So
like Mercy Came Running. I was listening to that the other day. So
Phillips, Craig, and Dean.
So kind of an old contemporary song now, but they're kind of remaking it. Yep. That's really good.
Some hymns they've redone that are good too. Done a great job. Speaking of Mark Clifton leading the time thereafter, he'll be preaching to our congregation, offering an encouraging sermon. So we want to encourage all of you to come out for that as well. It's not something that you want to skip. We promise you. The worship will be great, but also Mark Clifton will be good too, just to encourage and challenge our congregation in the area of church revitalization, but also in the area of just knowing your community, striving to reach your community with the gospel.
Yeah, you don't want to miss it, as Nick said. I mean, really. So, and spaces are filling up. We're limited in our capacity for that because we've only got so many we can hold in our worship center. Even if we were to go full capacity, we would still be limited to who we can fit in. So you better sign up before the spots run out. We want to start opening it up to the community once our people have had an opportunity to register and sign up. Once if you're part of Lebanon Baptist Church, have had a chance to sign up. So next week sometime we're going to open it up to the community to sign up too. So you better sign up this week if you're a part of Lebanon. If you're listening to this podcast, you're a part, and so in some way. So you want to sign up. Where can they go to sign up?
Yeah, so we'll put a link in the show notes here as well as in the YouTube video if you're watching on YouTube so that you can just click on it. But you can actually just go to lbcnow.org. We're going to talk about that this week or next. We're going to show how we're doing new upcoming events. So you can actually go to lbcnow.org, scroll down the homepage, and click on upcoming events and register right there. So super easy for you to find out how to register. Just go to LBC Now and scroll down.
Yep. And so that kind of all this kind of brings us to what we're going to talk about today. You got a book in front of you. I have the same book here as a copy too. We started a discussion on church revitalization a few weeks ago when we were down in Atlanta. We did a podcast episode on that. And we're going to kind of pick up and do a part two on church revitalization. What is that? And kind of focus on some of the key factors of that. And we're going to we started with this, we're using right now some of Mark Clifton's book, Reclaiming Glory, to talk a little bit about what church revitalization is. We need to continually remind ourselves of what's at hand, what's at stake when we're doing the work of leading the church. And those that are part, as we're doing a part of trying to build the church of Jesus Christ and work with Him to do that, what's involved in that. And so we're going to focus today actually on 6 imperatives. He calls these 6 replanting imperatives, but you could also call these 6 imperatives for being a healthy church or becoming a growing church, or these are 6, you must do these if you're going to help a church that's not growing start growing again. Whether that's a church that's 1,000 or 1,500, or whether that's a church of 50, if the church is plateaued or it's declining, these are like imperatives for getting that church to begin to grow and become healthy again. So why don't you just outline the 6? We're only going to talk about 2 today, but go ahead and read off what the 6 are, and then tell us what 2 we're going to focus on.
Yeah, so 6 of them. Pray without ceasing is number 1, which we'll talk about soon. Love the church's remaining members is number 2. Exegete the community. In other words, learn who the community is. Number 3, simplify your strategy. So don't be overcomplicated, but simplify your strategy and how you reach the community. Number 5, focus on reaching young men. It's unique. Make disciples. Number 6, who make disciples. Yep. So make disciples who make disciples.
That sounds like a verse of Scripture.
Yeah, close to the Great Commission, I think.
Did Jesus say that?
I think Jesus said that.
He said, go into all the world and make converts.
Yep, make converts. That's exactly what Matthew 28 says.
Yeah, he said, go into all the world and make decisions.
Yep.
Go into all the world and get hands raised, counted.
Yeah, just get the numbers. That was it.
No,
No, that's not what he said.
Okay.
He said make disciples.
That's a new translation.
New translation. That's the Matt Smith translation.
Jesus said
MSB.
Yeah.
Matt Smith Bible. There's a lot of translations in that one that we got to stay away from.
He said make disciples.
Make disciples.
Make disciples. And then he said teach them to do that too.
Do the same thing.
Make disciples who make disciples.
And we're in a culture many times in the church and that simply just wants to make converts instead of making disciples who make disciples.
Yeah, so, we settle. We're like, we get all excited about people that trusted Jesus Christ, and we should. Yeah. But then we stop as if the job's done. Yeah. Like that. It almost, in a sense, just begins at that point.
J.D. Greer, who said salvation is not the diving board, it's the swimming pool. Thought that was good. The gospel is literally the swimming pool you jump into, that you live your life in. It's not just the diving board that starts your life. So
that'll preach.
Yeah, that will preach.
Probably did.
Probably did. Yeah. And probably still is.
So what 2
we're not focusing on that one, but we
no,
could.
Man,
literally.
You get me started.
I know we could. We will though. I think that's a good one to talk about, especially for our church, is just making disciples. We will though.
If these are imperatives,
they're all important to talk about. But that one is important. So the 2 we're focusing on today is love the remaining members, church's remaining members within a replant or within a revitalization effort. That's number 1. And then number 2, we're going to focus on exegeting the community, or explaining, understanding, learning who your community is. So why don't you start us off with number 1, loving the church's remaining members. What does that mean for a church, replant, but also maybe apply it to our church today as well, Lebanon?
Yeah, so I'm so glad we're starting there too, because I think that is such an important task that gets overlooked. And I even say task, but it's about people, but that often gets overlooked in a church revitalization effort or situation. Oftentimes you kind of want to, you jump to like, okay, here's a church that's not growing, so let's come in and start looking for new people, okay? Yeah. And you want to start thinking, well, the people that are there are not doing something right, so let's bring something new to the table and all that. But you forget that you've got to pastor, shepherd, love, lead the people that are there. Yeah. And I think that's a great place to start. In fact, this situation here at Lebanon Baptist Church, for those that have been here for several years, they experienced several periods of time where it felt like they were not loved, they were not cared for. It was all almost like your opinion and you who have been here for so long don't matter. This is what matters. Let's go out here and get new people and reach people with the gospel. And we would say, you and I both would say reaching new people with the gospel is absolutely essential to being a healthy church. But so is caring for, shepherding, and actually loving the people who are currently a part of the body of Christ in the church here. And so there were periods here, I think, coming in. I knew that coming to this church that there had been some hurt from leadership. Leadership had hurt some that were in the church, a lot of the church. There had been 2 splits that had occurred, in this church in the previous couple years before, even me coming in January 2017. So I knew that it would be critically important to be able to love and care for the people that were here first. And so, and that's a continual effort that you have to keep doing. So that's an important place to start. And I felt, after hearing some of the stories and some of the things that had happened, I felt like coming in, that was going to be the first most important thing that I needed to do here and need to continue to do, and that is to really love and care for the people that are here. And it hasn't been hard to do. The people of Lebanon Baptist Church that were here when I got here, the people that we have now, they're not hard people to love and to care for. Yeah. And as a pastor and being in ministry where this is like a shepherd, you think about the shepherd analogy. If you really take the calling to pastoral ministry seriously, then it really isn't difficult to understand the need to shepherd and care for the people that are here. And so that is so critical. There's some specifics, I think, that go into that, and we can talk about some of that. But I think that's vitally important. Yeah, it's very important to be able to love those remaining members. And that's what so frustrates me about many of the modern day church planting movement even today. I think it's great. We need more churches, but many times they'll come in to dying churches, and as opposed to loving the remaining members, they'll kick them out or they'll push them out. And so I never want to be a part of that, and I don't think that's the right way because, again, it's multi-generational. I think God's church should be multi-generational. And so anyway, I think that's a great point you made there. And there are always some examples of people in churches that are not really following Christ, that are just causing problems. That you got to be able to lovingly, graciously deal with that and still pursue the mission of Jesus Christ for this to be a church. But again, you still do it in a way that it's like, I love this person. And love doesn't just allow everything to happen. With my kids, my little girl, Leah, she gets really mad when I tell her she cannot do something. But, love corrects too. Correct. And so that's a part of it. But, I know what you're saying. That's been a problem. And a lot of church plants have just been church splits. It's like, well, we don't like some people at the church, so we're going to start our own church, and that's just a split. Yeah. But we call it a plant, but it's just a split. Yeah. Because we didn't really love the people that were there. The shepherds didn't love. Yeah, I agree. Number 2. So number 2 is exegete your community. Number 1. Love the remaining church members. And maybe even before we jump on to 2, we talked a little bit about practically, what does that look like to love the remaining members? What does it look like? Yeah, good. I'm glad you asked.
before I jump in then.
I was just thinking, about that, like practically, what does that mean? And I think it's not just the pastor's responsibility to do that, but the staff have to do that. You've done a great job of that. I mean, I'm not saying this just to be patronizing here, but, people from day one of you coming on staff here, even though your role and responsibility starting out was just kids ministry, I was hearing from all the people in the church that you had contact with just how much, you knew them, you knew their name, they felt loved by you. They didn't feel like, oh, he's coming here and doing his thing with the kids. All the staff have to be a part of that. Getting to know the people, learning their names, listening to them, helping them when they have a need. I mean, we see things like that matter so much. Going out and visiting people, like I know, calling people, just, your job here is not, to be the visitation pastor or any of that, but yet there were a couple last week that, you're calling to check on, just to see how they're doing because they're having some issues. Those practical things, calling, visiting. I did a lot of that especially in the first few months of being here. Not changing things, but just going out and sitting in people's homes and listening. Yeah. Tell me about the church, and listening and having lunches and spending time with and affirming. There's things there. There are things that are not right or wrong that people in this church prefer. And that may be different from others, but we can all like some different things and support that with each other. And I think those are like some practical, maybe tangible ways to do that.
Authenticity too, I think, is important, just to actually genuinely want to do that. And I think both you and I have that desire, along with the other staff members. I
don't know anything about only.
Yeah, I don't know about the other two since they're not in here.
I don't know about those other pastors. I don't know about Dan and Sean.
We just don't know.
Those guys. No.
But I think there is some authenticity there. People know when you really care. And again, they don't care what you know, nor what you say until they know how much you care.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just doing a class today. I was doing this little teaching lecture on leadership, and Coos and Posner said in the Leadership Challenge, they said that if they don't believe the messenger, they'll never believe the message.
Correct.
And so that's all about love and authenticity and really caring about the people. That's the way you become a person who people want to follow. Yeah. Because they buy into the leader before they buy in to the leader's vision or message.
Yep. Love the people. I think that's good. Anything else?
And we've all got to do that. That's not just a task of us, but we've got to do that. And I hear that. I've heard that from people in our church, that there is genuine care and concern for each other within the body of Christ. I mean, a lot of the kind of, misconceptions about different ages or different worship style, people thinking one thing about the opposite of it. I didn't find any of those negative things to be actually the case. Yeah. People actually did love each other and care about each other.
I love to watch is Eddie May, one of our deacons, who literally, and Jason Spratling, both are real good at this, two deacons, literally spend and invest their time in Bob McGehee, who's, how old is Bob now? Late 70s, early 80s, I think. Right. Literally invest, a totally different generational gap there, but we'll invest the time and effort, spend time with them. Yeah, that's a great example of those in our church who love every generation.
Yeah, and I mean, like you take, I was just thinking about this yesterday, Mr. Woody's doing the, still mowing the grass, keeping the yard up. Him and his grandson were out here.
84, 85?
Yeah, up in his 80s, and him and his grandson are spreading mulch yesterday, and they went out of their way to even help me out with the little thing I had at the house, getting some stuff and taking it over there, and people like that, they care about this church. And so, like, leadership ought to care about, like, we care about them. I love spending time with him and just seeing how he's able to continually do that day in and day out. His wife, Miss Woody, she's been sick, and she's in a rehab facility right now, but talking to her on the phone, and we've got this running thing going on about fruitcake. She loves fruitcake. I hate fruitcake, and she, continues to give me a hard time about that. But just, it's not been hard to love the people that we have here. They've made that very easy. I know there are some places where churches have made it real difficult.
Yes.
for the pastor and for the leaders to love them. But this church has not made it hard at all.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
You've been there too.
I've been there too. Yes, I know what it feels like. Hey, we got about 5 minutes left. Let's jump into the second one, and we may have to pause it and continue the second round. But next one. So after loving the remaining members, if you want an imperative for church replanting or church revitalization or healthy church, it's that of exegeting the community. That's a big word. Explain what it means to exegete the community.
Yeah, so, to know your community, to know the fabric, the demographic, the people, the values, the desires, white collar, blue collar, white, Asian, black, educational backgrounds, to know what your community looks like so that you can effectively reach that community. Yeah. That's what it means to exegete the community. And a lot of times churches get into really dire situations when this is the number one obvious indicator that there is a problem with a given church is when the church is located in a community where all the people in the church do not live near the church. And everybody around the church looks different, thinks different, acts different, culturally is different from
they commute to the church.
Yeah, they used to live. Everybody used to live around the church, but as the community around the church changed, the people in the church moved out of the community, and those that still come commute in from outside the community. So you either need to relocate, to where your people are, or you need to change in order to reach the community around you. And so you've got to know that. I mean, we've got to understand our community. We get a good look at our community on Upward basketball and in these sports and recreational events, or if you were to go over to Food Line and go shopping, or if you were to go to the local gym across the street over here, you get a feel for what our community is and looks like. And so we've got to be able to reach our community. And in order to do that, first you got to know the community. And a lot of times churches they're not even aware that the community around them is thinking and behaving and desiring and acting a certain way. They're not aware of who the people are around them. So you're not going to be able to reach the people until you know the people.
Correct.
That's basically what it means. You can add I know to that.
Well, I was going to say, I know we got a few minutes here. I was going to say, what are some best practices you think of? Maybe even, I think our church is a good example too, best practices for us to go about knowing our community.
Okay, shop at the grocery store.
Yeah, so you said that, shop, get to know.
Get to shop
even
at the grocery
ask,
store.
Like I encouraged, one time I taught a Bible study back during the midst of COVID, and I said, why don't you go across the street and ask the person working in Food Line what they think about Lebanon?
Yep.
And a lot of times, people will say, they'll have different suggestions, but that's a good way to do it. Shop at the grocery store across the street.
Yeah.
What else?
Shop at the grocery store, frequent the places around here. But also, I would say, frequent the businesses around here. But also, I would say, for our community, we meet a need in the community, like through Upward. You get to know the community by being here for that. We're doing soccer this coming fall. We have a food pantry. We're doing things to be able to help us connect with the people in our community.
Correct.
And so if you're listening to this podcast, being involved in those ministries where you get the opportunity to rub shoulders with, sit down with, coach, pray for, or we've got some new things we're going to do next year already. We've talked about with Upward, but anyway, just rubbing shoulders with the community. I think Mark said it. I was going to try to see if I could read this little statement from the book where he talked about that. I probably won't find it because I didn't. But he says he basically says, as you exegete your community, look for ways that you can meet unique spiritual and physical needs for your neighbors. And so what does our community need? And we're doing some of that using our facility here to meet needs for people in our community, and that allows us to get to know them better.
I think too, knowing we're involved in the elementary and middle school, high school is huge too.
That's
I think he even
one.
mentions that. He said, "You want to know your community? Go to the local high school basketball game."
That's a good point.
Yeah, be involved in the school system, which we are. And as Pastor Matt said, I'd encourage you, if you're watching this, listening to this, get involved in these things we do for our community. If you really care about seeing people saved, want to understand their needs, get involved in some of the things we do throughout our community.
Yeah, and the schools is a big one. That's a big place to get involved. And we've got these huge open doors here, to go into the public schools and to have ministry there and FaceTime there and just be able to be involved. That's a big way. And again, that's one way you can do it.
Yeah.
But if we're not careful, our churches become like little isolation camps or whatever, if you will. I didn't say concentration, but just like isolation camps there, where it's like everybody lives outside the community, drives in, comes to church, goes back to their homes. Well, we want to work hard not to be that. We want our church to be, a central place in the community. And I love the way that our people here are so open with our facility, with our campus, and we open up to the community to be able to be a help to them.
Yeah, I think so too. Man, we could spend so much longer on this, but we've reached our limit. So we'll come back in the next week or so and discuss more about these imperatives for church revitalization. But for today, we looked at exegeting your community and also loving the remaining members, both important things. Yep. Let me encourage you again, join us for Mark Clifton, because again, he wrote this book and he's going to be talking more about all of these things. Join us for the night of worship on April 19th. We'll put the link in the description so you can sign up. You're not going to want to miss that, as we said. And then also, if you just have some time and want to join us or want to serve for the Revitalize Conference the next day on April 20th, we'd love for you to do that. Just let us know. This has been a great discussion, and we look forward to what Mark Clifton has to offer. As always, our podcast is sponsored by Lebanon Baptist Church. If you're new to Lebanon or if you're not familiar with our church, we'd love for you to join us for worship. Visit lbcnow.org. You can figure out our service times there, 9:30 and 11 a.m., and then also find out more information about what we do and why we do it. Thank you, Pastor Matt, for joining us. You don't really have a choice. Again, always got to be on here. So we're glad you've decided to do that. And thank you for listening or watching. And we hope that you have a great week.
Thanks for joining us for Around the Table,
a discussion all about the ministry and preaching of Lebanon Baptist Church.
If you would like to learn more about Lebanon Baptist Church, visit lbcnow.org. Make sure to follow Lebanon Baptist Church on Facebook and Instagram, as well as subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Play,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thank you for listening.